The chamber was vast, carved from black stone that hummed with power. In the center stood a platform surrounded by tiers of watchers. Hundreds of alien officials, tall, scaled, winged, glowing, sat in silence. Above them, thousands more, watched from hovering screens, their faces lit by cold light. Every species from the Galactic Coalition was here, gathered in judgment. This was no simple hearing. This was a spectacle, a warning, a show of strength. And in the center of it all, shackled in thick, glowing chains, stood a human. He was small compared to the armored guards beside him. No scales, no horns, no glowing skin. His brown hair was messy, his clothes were torn, his face was bruised, yet somehow, he stood straight, not shaking, not looking down. The speaker, a creature with 6 eyes and metal tentacles, slammed its gavel. The sound echoed like thunder. Let the trial of the Terran, known as Ash of Earth code designation Ash-9, begin. Whispers filled the chamber. Its translations flickered across screens in dozens of languages. Viewers leaned in. This human, the speaker said, its voice deep and echoing, is charged with the destruction of a coalition warship, the lives of 277 personnel, 1 battleship-class vessel, all lost, not in battle, not in war, but by 1 human. A slow ripple of mocking laughter passed through the crowd. Some alien officials smirked. A few chuckled out loud. Weak species, someone whispered. They call that a warrior? Still, Ash didn't speak. He looked forward, eyes steady. The speaker continued. Evidence will be shown. This creature infiltrated a ship with no weapons, no armor, no support, and yet the vessel fell. Explain this. What does a monkey from Sol 3 bring down a warship? Ash raised an eyebrow at that, but again, silence. Very well, said the speaker. Play the record. Above the chamber, a holographic display blinked to life. Footage played, grainy at first. The inside of a ship corridor, empty. Then, movement. A blur, a figure in shadow, gasps echoed. The shape was human. The camera jumped, lights flickered, then darkness. The next feed came from a different angle, inside the engineering core. A crew of aliens stood around a control panel. Then alarms rang. Red lights, systems failing, screams. A single figure passed across the screen, fast, precise. In less than a second, 3 armed guards collapsed. Still no weapons, just hands. The video stopped. Lights returned to the chamber. This is what you did, the speaker growled. You pretend to be weak. You hide behind your dirt world laws. But you've killed hundreds. Finally, Ash smiled and spoke. His voice was calm, quiet, but it traveled across the chamber like a blade. You think that was strength? He said. You haven't seen strength? A murmur passed through the watchers. The speaker narrowed its many eyes. Explain. Ash lifted his gaze, meeting the camera broadcasting across the stars. You called us weak, he said, ignored our warnings, mocked our silence, but we were never asleep. Earth watches. Earth remembers. You took humans, experimented. You thought we wouldn't know? He stepped forward. The guards moved, but something stopped them. The chains around Ash's wrists flickered. One of them snapped. The watchers gasped. Ash raised his arm not to fight, but to point at the camera. You want to know how 1 human took your ship? He tilted his head slightly. You're asking the wrong question. Stepped forward again. His chains began to glow, not with restraint, but with energy. The right question is, why did only 1 of us come? The screen above changed, static, then new footage. Not from the Coalition, from Earth. A different angle. Dozens of humans, not soldiers, not in armor. Moving silently through other Coalition vessels, security cams failing, doors opening without code, lights dying, and then flames. Shock hit. The chamber like a storm. Some watchers stood, others shouted. This is an act of war. 1 alien screamed. Ash smiled wider. No, he said. It's the end of pretending. Suddenly, one of the guards beside him collapsed, twitching. The others stepped back. Ash looked up as another human face appeared on the screen. A woman calm, sharp-eyed. "Transmission from Earth Command," she said. "To all Coalition species watching this, you asked why one human destroyed a starship? We ask, how many more do you want to test?" The feed ended. Ash turned back to the tribunal. "You called us." 3 days earlier, in a quiet part of space, a Coalition fleet floated just outside Earth's neutral zone. The ships were enormous, gleaming, advanced, and proud. Their hulls shimmered with defense fields. Their engines pulsed like distant thunder. These were not vessels of peace. These were war machines wrapped in diplomacy. The lead ship, Vindicator of Order, was larger than anything Earth had ever built. At least that's what the aliens believed.
Nice.
Inside its command deck, Commander Velrix stood tall, his 6 limbs crossed behind his back. His skin was armor-plated, shining with pride and contempt. "They are still not responding," reported a junior officer with insectoid features. "The humans refuse to open diplomatic channels," Velrix hissed. "Typical, arrogant, they pretend neutrality, but they're just afraid. Their planet barely ranks above Class 2 technology. Let them tremble." Another officer leaned closer. "Perhaps we should remind them. Who holds the stars?" Valrax's grin widened. "Send a message, gentle one," without waiting for permission. A smaller vessel broke formation and descended toward a human colony station near the edge of the zone. Its mission was simple: fly close, disrupt communications, make them feel watched. It was standard intimidation. Protocol, nothing serious. But something went wrong. Alarms blared. Static-filled comms. The smaller ship spiraled, systems fried. It crashed into the colony's atmosphere, tumbling in flame before disappearing into the clouds. On the bridge of the Vindicator, silence fell. Valrax's voice turned sharp. "Was that a defense system?" "No, sir," came the reply. "There were no weapons fired. Their systems never activated." "It looks like a malfunction." Valrax narrowed his glowing eyes. "Well, then Earth sabotaged us." Quietly. "Shall we retaliate?" "No, not yet." He smiled again, slower this time. "Let them think we accept their little accident. We'll send someone to investigate." At that same moment, far below, inside Earth's hidden orbital facility, call sign. No, 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 no. A meeting took place deep beneath layers of steel and silence. A woman with silver hair and unreadable eyes stared at a holomap of the Coalition fleet. She wore no medals, no rank. Yet everyone in the room stood still when she spoke. "Send Ash," she said. A young analyst blinked. "Ash 9, alone?" She nodded. "No weapons, no backup. Let them think it's nothing." Another officer frowned. "But what if they detect him?" The woman looked up. "Then let them watch. Let them underestimate. One man is all we need." Hours later, a stealth pod launched from the far side of the moon. No radar could track it. No sensor could find it. The pod was silent as if it had never existed. Inside sat a single figure, calm, still, breathing slowly. Ash-9. He wore a black infiltration suit. No markings. No gear. No weapons. Just skin-tight tech, woven with old Earth metal and new human secrets. His eyes were closed. His heart rate was slow. As the pod approached the Coalition ship, it broke apart. Tiny pieces melted into space, leaving Ash alone, floating. Then his suit activated, as thin magnetic threads wrapped around his form, and without a sound. He latched onto the hull of the Vindicator. No one saw him. No alarm rang. Ash moved across the outer surface like a shadow, slipping between security fields, bypassing sensors. He reached a maintenance hatch and waited. Seconds later, it opened, triggered by the Coalition's daily diagnostic cycle. He slid inside and disappeared in the command deck. Valrax received a short message. "Human ambassador accepted our offer. One unarmed specialist will inspect the crash data on board." Valrax scoffed. "One? That's insulting?" But he waved a hand. "Fine. Let them send their weakling. We'll show them how real fleets operate. 2 hours later, strange readings flickered on the lower decks. Nothing major, it's just minor power fluctuations. A disabled camera, a locked door opening on its own. Tech officers shrugged. System lag, possibly from the diagnostic scan. By the time they noticed the second anomaly, a coolant spike in engineering ash had already passed through 6 secure zones. He left no trace. No sound, no error, only silence. In a dim hallway deep inside the warship, Ash paused beside a locked panel. He pressed his hand against it. The suit responded, shifting its texture. Blue lines pulsed across his arm. The lock clicked inside the panel. Data core spun, filled with Coalition records. Ash looked at them for only a moment, then moved on. He wasn't here for secrets. He was here for proof. Back on Earth, the woman in Silent Dawn received a short message on her private console. Just for words. Phase 1. In progress. She leaned back, exhaled slowly, and whispered, "Let them believe it's still peace. Let them forget who we are." Inside the belly of the Coalition warship Vindicator, the lights flickered. Not enough to raise alarms, just enough to be noticed by the wrong people or the right one. Ash moved like wind through metal corridors, ducking into shadows, slipping. Through maintenance shafts, crossing sectors meant only for machines. His breath never quickened. His heartbeat stayed low. His hands touched walls, floors, consoles. Not to break them, but to read them. His suit learned it adjusted. It mimicked the ship's language, absorbed the codes, and rewrote them in silence. He wasn't just infiltrating, he was rewiring. The ship's nerves, and no one even knew he was there. Somewhere above. In the command center, officers argued about nothing. Their security systems reported all clear. Their guards played games. Their techs read false data. Everything looked normal because Ash had made it that way. He had been trained for this. No, not trained, engineered. 15 years earlier, a secret program began on Earth, not on the surface, but deep underground, under ice, beneath. Oceans and places satellites couldn't see. It wasn't run by governments. It wasn't known to the public. Only 13 people knew it existed. They called it Project Ember. The goal was simple: create operatives that could walk into alien territory alone and never be detected. Not by stealth, not by speed, not by force, but by becoming nothing. No scent. No sound. No emotion. No signature. Just presence. Invisible and unstoppable. Ash was the 9th success. The others before him had failed. Some broke. Some disappeared. One simply stopped breathing one day. Body alive. Soul gone. But Ash didn't break. He adapted. Inside the Vindicator, he reached the lower engineering core. Doors scanned him. Didn't see him. One guard walked past. Never turned. A camera. Blinked once, and then recorded empty hallway. Ash crouched near a central power relay. He placed 2 fingers against it. Tiny sparks flowed through his glove. Within seconds, the relay's data flipped. How the ship's life signs monitor showed no changes. Even if he had disabled entire sections, no alert would be triggered. He stood, silent as death, and moved on. In the medbay, a technician named Laura's frowned. She wasn't high-ranking, just a systems analyst, but something felt off. "Strange," she muttered. "Heat spike on deck 6. Then it vanished. Another tech shrugged. Could be from the coolant reroute earlier. We're due for a core cycle anyway. But why did the readings clear themselves? The other laughed. Maybe the ship's finally fixing itself. She tried to laugh, but her skin itched. Something wasn't right. She opened a diagnostic window. Nothing. Everything was perfect. 2. Perfect. Ash reached the holding vault. Behind this door, according to Coalition records, were navigation logs, security data, and personal effects from detained lifeforms. A simple inventory room, but Earth's last transmission had said otherwise. And Ash believed it. He pressed his hand to the door. The suit pulsed. Clicked, it opened. What lay inside made even Ash pause. Rows of glass tubes lined the chamber each, holding a floating figure. Not alien. Not machine. Human, men, women, children, suspended in clear liquid. Wires fed into their skulls. Their eyes twitched, muscles spasmed. Experimentation, neural mapping, it's biological testing. The Coalition hadn't just captured them. They were studying them. And the worst part? Ash recognized one, not by face, but by mark. A small tattoo on her shoulder. Project Ember. Subject. 3. A sister from the program. She'd been reported missing 6 years ago. They said she drowned. During underwater survival training, she hadn't drowned. She'd been taken. Ash stepped back, his mind burning with cold fire. He didn't show emotion, couldn't. It was part of the training. But something shifted. Inside him, this wasn't just an operation anymore. It was personal. In the bridge above, more signals began to flicker. "Sir," said a guard, "I'm picking up minor disruptions in auxiliary decks." Valrax barely looked up. Rats. Or system cleaning. Ignore it. Not. It's spreading. He waved his hand. "Do you know how many systems are on this ship? Let the diagnostics run." It turned back to the screen, showing Earth's silent colonies. "I want to remind them," he whispered, "what weakness looks like." Ash was already reminding them what strength really was. He moved to the central conduit of the vault, tapped a code into a console, and uploaded every record of the experiments to a secure Earth frequency. Then he walked past the tanks and touched the control pad. One by one, the humans inside began to rise. In the command deck, alarms suddenly screamed. "Sir, cryovault's opening. Section 19 is no longer sealed." Velrax stood stunned. "What?" Then a new sound filled the ship, not mechanical, not system-based, but a human voice over the intercom. Ash's voice. "You call..." Ash stood in silence, surrounded by glowing tanks. The liquid hissed as it drained. One by one, the humans inside began to wake. Their eyes twitched, their limbs moved. Their minds, slow to return, drifted back from the edge of unconsciousness. But they were not the same as before. These were not civilians. These were not ordinary people. They were broken, modified, tampered with. Each one had scars beneath their skin, some visible, some not. Wires had been run through bones. Neural chips had been burned into their spines. Their DNA had been altered not to strengthen, but to understand what made humans tick. The Coalition hadn't just captured them. They had dissected them alive. Ash moved to the nearest tank, where Subject 3, his long-lost program sister, slowly opened her eyes. She didn't recognize him. It's not yet. But her gaze locked onto his like a drowning person finding the surface. He pressed a hand to the glass, just for a moment, then he turned away. He had work to do. In the Vindicator's bridge, chaos erupted. Lights blinked red. Systems began failing. One by one, security lockdown has failed, someone shouted. Cryo section breached, Velrax roared. "Send kill teams to Vault 19. Seal the deck." He paced across the command floor as more reports came in. "We've lost control of decks 17 through 21. Vital signs show human life forms active, sir. They're waking up." Valrax's sharp claws twitched. "How? How?" And then across every screen in the ship, Ash's face appeared. No helmet, no mask. Just calm eyes, staring back. "This is Ash-9," he said quietly, "and this is your reckoning." Gasps filled the bridge. "Your crimes are not hidden. Earth knows. The galaxy knows. We watched. We waited. We let you believe we were weak." Ash's voice echoed through the halls. "You studied us, tortured us, but you never understood the truth." He paused. "You can't control what you don't." "Comprehend," Valrax snarled. "Find him. Cut the feeds." But they COULDN. T-Dots had taken the ship's comms, and the message was spreading. Elsewhere in the galaxy, Other coalition ships started receiving the same feed, governors, officials. Scientists saw watching the inside of their proudest warship crumble from within, taken over by a single man, without a weapon, without an army, just one human. The transmission began showing the truth images of test chambers, scans of living humans dissected alive, alien doctors slicing into brains. Watching reactions, neural activity being charted as pain was pushed beyond human limits. One file showed a child no older than 10, screaming while electrodes fired through his spine. The galaxy stared in horror. These were not warriors. They were victims. Back inside the vault, the freed humans began moving. Some collapsed. Others leaned on walls. One of them, a woman with cybernetic eyes, looked at Ash. "You're from Earth?" she asked. He nodded. Her voice was rough. "Did they send more?" Ash shook his head. "Just me." The others stared. One human, a man with burns over half his body, asked, "Then how do we get out?" Ash looked at the power panel. "We don't," he said. "They do." He turned and opened the main vault door. Behind it stood a full coalition, kill-tim armored. Armed and ready. Ash didn't blink. He stepped forward. The soldiers opened fire, but the bullets didn't hit. They stopped, midair, frozen by. Pulsed from Ash's suit, he moved with impossible speed, closing the distance. Disabling the first 3 guards with a series of brutal, fluid strikes, the rest fell back. Confused, Ash grabbed one by the throat and slammed him into the wall. "Tell your commander." Not guess anymore. He let the soldier drop and disappeared into the shadows again. Back on the bridge. Velrax was losing control. "Shut down all power," he shouted. "Kill the lights. I want every hallway purged. If you see a shadow, fire on it." "Sir," said one officer, pale with fear, "it won't matter. We've lost the security AI, and the humans. They're escaping." Velrax froze. Then his voice dropped. "They're not escaping." Turned to the window, staring out. Into space, they're taking the ship. In the corridors, Ash led the survivors through dark passages. His mind calculated each move, every breath, every risk. He wasn't just escaping. He was drawing them in. Every squad sent to stop them was thinned, delayed, pulled deeper, into confusion and deeper into fear. This was no longer war. It was a message written in silence at the far end of the ship. Ash reached the engine core, the heart of the Vindicator. A storm of energy spun inside. Fusion coils, gravity stabilizers, fuel rings the size of buildings. He accessed a control terminal and started entering codes behind him. The humans watched. "What are you doing?" someone asked. Ash didn't turn. "I'm setting the ship to sleep." In the bridge, the lights died. Engines stopped humming. Screens blinked out, one by one. The mighty Vindicator shut down, dead, silent, weightless, and over the intercom. Silence filled the warship. Total. Absolute silence. No engines, no lights, no command. The Vindicator of order. The pride of the Galactic Coalition drifted in space like a dead beast. Its metal skin, once glowing with energy, was now cold and dim. The stars outside no longer reflected off polished hulls. They stared back like eyes. Inside the bridge, Commander Velrax stood frozen. His breath fogged the cold air. Power systems were down. Gravity was failing. And worst of all, they were blind. "Reboot the cores," he growled. No one moved. "Do it." A technician scrambled to the nearest console, hands shaking, trying to activate emergency functions. Nothing. Responded, "Sir," the technician said, voice barely a whisper, "we've been locked out." Velrax's jaw tightened. "What do you mean? He has control. All of it. Every system. Every backup. Every relay." Velrax slammed a clawed hand into the screen. "How?" Elsewhere, in the shadows of the engineering deck, Ash walked alone. His movements were slow now, precise, not rushed. The job was done. The Vindicator was his, above him. Glowing pipes pulsed with faint energy. Below him, silent corridors stretched. In every direction, and somewhere behind him, the freed humans followed, limping, whispering, unsure of what to believe. They had watched him fight. They had watched him move through the ship, like a ghost. Not a soldier. Not a man. Something else. Ash reached a side panel and pressed 2 fingers against it. A pulse ran through the wall. He spoke without turning. Earth command. This is Eshnon. Do you read? Voice answered, soft, female, and calm. Reading you? You live across 12 systems. Ash paused. Send the feed. In orbit around distant stars, across remote systems, deep inside Coalition space, screens flickered. Governors paused. Traders looked up. Civilian stations stopped mid-traffic. Even military fleets turned their signals toward one source, the feed. From the Vindicator, and there he was, a single human. No armor, no fleet, no weapons. Just Eshnon, standing inside the heart of their greatest warship. This ship, Ash said slowly, was meant to remind Earth of its place. His voice was cold. Steady. You used it to watch us, to intimidate, to abduct. Images filled the screen. Tanks, cryochambers, tortured humans, children, implants, experiments. Gasps spread across the galaxy. Species who had trusted thee. Coalition suddenly recoiled. Ash continued. You asked why one human could take your ship. He stared into the camera. You should have asked why we waited so long. Back on the Vindicator, Valrex stood among his officers, pale, trembling, defeated. We can still fight, one said. We can override the main. Valrex didn't answer, because he knew the truth. The ship didn't belong to them anymore. In the lower levels, the Coalition kill teams tried to regroup, but the lights stayed off. Elevators were dead. Comms were silent. Their own weapons were glitching. One soldier whispered, He's in the vents. Another said, No, he's everywhere. Then from the darkness, Ash's voice came quiet and close. Run. A blur. A scream. A thud. Then silence again. Inside the ship's reactor core, Ash stood before the central node, the beating heart of the engine. He opened a small panel, revealing a glowing switch, the final override. One touch. The ship would begin its descent. Not into battle, but into humiliation. He didn't press it yet. Instead, he opened the broadcast once more. To the Coalition, he said, This ship is a symbol, a warning. He stepped aside so the camera could see the reactor behind him. I'm sending it to you, as a gift. Then he turned to the console and typed a single command. Engine vector, DROP, outside. The Vindicator's thrusters rumbled back. To life not under Coalition control, but under Ash's code. The ship rotated slowly, then accelerated. It was no longer drifting. It was falling, sir, shouted a Coalition officer. We're heading toward the gravity well. Valrax's eyes widened. No, stop it. But they couldn't. The ship began its slow descent, toward the pull of a nearby gas giant, a massive planet with crushing gravity and swirling storms. Panic spread across the crew. But Ash didn't mean to crash the ship. He was sending a message, at the last possible moment. As the ship neared the outer edge of the gravity pull, the engines cut. The ship stabilized. Stuck, unable to escape, spinning gently above the storm, a symbol in orbit, a silent monument of defeat, seen from hundreds of light years away. Inside, freed humans gathered behind Ash, staring at the storm below. What happens now? One of them asked. Dotch looked up at the camera, still streaming across the stars. They laughed at Earth, he said softly. They mocked our silence. He turned to the others. Now they'll remember our voice. In every corner of Coalition, space, one word, echoed Earth, not as a joke, not as a shadow, but as a name tied to power, precision, and silence, wrapped in fury. And somewhere across the stars, others whispered to each other in fear. The Vindicator of Order drifted helplessly in the shadow of the gas giant. Gravity pressed against its hull like an invisible wall, keeping it suspended in space, not destroyed, not free, but held in place like a trophy or a warning across the galaxy. The feed from the ship still played. It was no longer just a broadcast. It was a message. Every world that had once mocked. Earth's silence was now staring at its volume. Inside the Coalition's central command hub on the planet Juraxis, Prime Supreme Director Halther stood before a war council. The room was round, polished with dark stone and flickering light. A screen floated in the air, still showing Ash-9. The director's skin was cracked marble, glowing with inner light, and his voice was deep enough to silence entire rooms. This was not war, he said. This was not an invasion. He pointed to the screen. This was a surgical strike by a single human. The generals around him were speechless. Warriors from different species, some armored by their own skin, had no words. Their maps showed the Vindicator hanging in dead space, shut down, owned by Earth. One general finally spoke. "It must be a trick. No species could enough," Halthar interrupted. "You saw the feed? We all did." He turned away, and now the rest of the galaxy has seen it too. Across 12 systems, unrest began to spread. On the planet Trelos, citizens gathered outside Coalition embassies, demanding answers. On the moon cities of Naxir, 3 minor species announced they would be withdrawing support from the Coalition fleet. On the edge worlds, pirate clans began whispering, not about treasure or targets, but about Earth. No one laughed at humans anymore, not after what they saw. Not after one man walked into a fortress and made it fall without firing a shot. Back aboard the Vindicator, Ash sat in silence. The survivors, the humans who had been used in experiments, were resting in the lower decks. Ash had given them clean air, warmth, and power. He spoke little. He always spoke little. But now, in the soft hum of a ship that wasn't truly his, he opened a secure link. "Earth Command," Ash-9 reporting. The familiar voice answered, calm as always. "Reading you, Ash." "Mission complete," he said. "Collateral damage? None. Enemy asset compromised. Enemy program exposed. Are you prepared for Phase 2? Ash didn't answer right away then. Slowly. "I have one request." "Granted." Ash turned to the screen, tapped a file, and uploaded every image, every scream, every twisted experiment from the ship's vaults. "Send this to the outer systems. All of them. Let them see." And Earth did. Within hours, every minor species that had ever feared the Coalition, every fringe world, every suppressed colony saw what was hidden beneath the surface. They saw the truth the Coalition had not protected peace, it had violated it. And Earth, the species they had laughed at, had held back, not out of weakness, but patience. On the outer rim world of Sultrana, a diplomat named Rezik stood before a crowd of angry citizens. His face was pale. He had once told them Earth was unimportant, that humans were small, slow, and emotional. Now the sky above his city was filled with projections. Ash's face, his voice, his words. "You used us. You broke us. You studied our pain like it was a puzzle. Now you'll learn what happens when the puzzle solves itself." Back on the Vindicator, strange thing began to happen. Coalition soldiers started surrendering. One by one, they dropped their weapons, stepped away from secure doors, and sat down. Some cried, some simply stared at the walls. They weren't beaten. In combat, they were beaten by something worse. Ash didn't kill them, didn't torture them. He had shown them something that their generals had hidden. Fear not of Earth's weapons, but of Earth's restraint in the ship's central memory core. Ash sat beside a console. He tapped slowly, one line at a time, rewriting systems. He wasn't stealing the ship. He was giving it back, but not to the Coalition, to the people who needed to see what power and silent truly looked like. Meanwhile, deep within Earth's hidden command center, Silent Dawn, the silver-haired woman stood before a council of dark-suited figures. She wore no medals, gave no rank she didn't need to. We waited, she said. They laughed. She gestured to the floating projection, the image of the Vindicator hanging helpless in orbit. Earth's signal still echoing from it. Now they will think twice before touching Earth again. Pause. One of the figures asked. And the coalition. She smiled faintly. They're already tearing apart from the inside. But even as the galaxy watched Earth's power unfold, the real story was just beginning, because the Vindicator was only the first test. Earth had sent one man, one ghost, and the question now spreading like wildfire across star systems was simple. If that's what one human can do, what happens? When Earth stops holding back, Ash looked up at the stars. The Vindicator of Order was no longer just a warship. It had become a symbol. Once feared across hundreds of star systems, it had hovered above broken colonies like a god. It had silenced rebellions, burned cities, and delivered the coalitions. Justice with brutal precision. Now, it moved under human control, silent, controlled by one man, one human, Ash. Inside the command deck. The lights pulsed slowly, waiting for orders. Ash stood at the center, staring out at the stars. His uniform was simple, dark, untouched by blood or metals. His face was calm, cold, but inside him, a storm raged. He had seen too much what the coalition had done to the weak, to the forgotten, to Earth's people. And now, the galaxy was going to feel what judgment without mercy looked like. Not with an army, not with fleets, just one man. Back on Earth, panic buzzed through the highest levels of the Galactic Council they've taken. The Vindicator, one ambassador cried. It's impossible not taken, corrected the Earth representative, calmly claimed. But how? One man. That's a top-tier warship. Even we. The Earth diplomat leaned forward, voice like ice. You made a mistake, he thought. We were like you, that we would fight the way you fight. Pause. We don't send armies to send messages. We send legends. Across the stars, the Vindicator jumped again. It exited warp above a mining station in Sector 09. A coalition black site. Hidden. Secret. Not on any public map. The moment it appeared, alarms screamed. Fighters launched. Defense cannons spun. But Ash didn't fire. He opened a channel. A single sentence. Release the prisoners. Or I release the truth. The station's commander, a six-side Southeran named Mox, laughed. You're bluffing, human, Ash responded, by turning the Vindicator's long-range transmitters to full power. He began uploading files. One by one. Prison. Logs. Torture reports. Genetic testing videos, names, faces, screams, not just humans, but hundreds of species. Innocents, forgotten. The truth exploded across the stars like wildfire. On planets far away, screens lit up in homes and cities. Children wept. Elders stared in silence. Crowds gathered. And across those systems, a phrase began to echo. The human did this. Alone? Yes, alone. Back on 09, the station commander panicked. Shut down the feed. Shoot him down. But it was too late. The damage wasn't physical. It was moral. The people inside the station turned on their own commander. The lower officers laid down their weapons. Ash never boarded. He never had to. By the time he left, the station was under its own rebellion. The prisoners were freed, and the coalition's grip had slipped again. Back on the Vindicator, Ash sat. In silence, he wasn't smiling. He didn't cheer to him. This wasn't victory. It was cleaning up a mess. His message wasn't war. It was warning. Don't push Earth again. Don't test human patience. Because this was only one man. But others weren't so calm. In the deep void, the remnants of the coalition gathered their elite units. Commanders whispered of retaliation. Mercenaries were hired. Assassin teams were dispatched. We end this ghost, said General Laroque. Cybernetic warlord whose fleet had once bombarded Earth colonies. He's one man. No, a young strategist whispered, shaking his head. He's not one man anymore. What do you mean? It's an idea. And ideas are harder to kill than any ship. On a shadow planet called Voron's Edge, a secret meeting began. 13 exiled leaders, all former enemies of the Coalition. They had seen the footage, the truth, demanded they were ready. One of them, an old rebellion leader, said the words that many feared to speak. I want Earth on our side. In hidden systems, old enemies of the Coalition began calling themselves allies of humanity. On war-torn worlds, graffiti appeared. Ash lives, one human, one starship. Earth waited. Now it moves. Ash saw none of this. He was all ready. On to his next target, a warship factory orbiting a dying star. They thought he'd avoid it, too. Well defended. Too large. Too fortified. They forgot one thing. Ash didn't think like them. He didn't need to fight. It's 1,000 ships. He only needed to make one vanish. And so, in the darkness of space, as the stars burned cold above him, Ash sent one final signal before diving into the fire. Let this be the last time you call us weak. The warship factory above Drennick 4 was gone, not destroyed, not bombed. No explosion, no debris, just silence. As if the universe had erased it, Ash had sent no message. This time, no warning. No transmission. And that silence screamed louder than any fleet. Across the galaxy, billions watched in fear. The news showed only a still image of empty space where 1,000 warships had once been built. Governments panicked. Security forces went dark. Council chambers erupted in chaos. Who would be next? Ash had become unpredictable, unstoppable, unreachable. The vindicator of order. Once the Coalition's hammer was now Earth's ghost blade. In the depths of the Galactic Council's main headquarters, Chancellor Iridas slammed a metallic fist on the long glass table. This is war. No, whispered High Strategist Can, her scales turning pale with fear. This is punishment. They had called Earth weak, mocked it, exploited it, and now they couldn't even see the blow before it landed. But Earth had still not spoken. Not officially, no army moved. No ships left the Sol system. No invasion, no speech, just Ash. A single human flying a stolen god ship. Each strike calculated. Each message silent. Each attack making the powerful more terrified than the last. They had expected rage. They had prepared for war. But they weren't ready for justice. Ash was changing. He no longer stood still for long. He moved like a shadow between systems, gathering information, revealing secrets, striking with precision, leaving nothing behind but echoes. Yet even now, Galaxy didn't understand his true mission. He wasn't trying to destroy the Coalition. He was trying to show the Galaxy what Earth was truly capable of, and that frightened them more than destruction ever could. In the refugee zones across shattered planets, whispers became movements. Children who had never seen Earth painted its flag on walls. Broken people in slums wore shirts with a single word, Ash. Oppressed miners in slave colonies took up tools and said, "He fights for us." The Galaxy was learning something powerful. One human had stood up. Now, others would too. Back in Sol, the leaders of Earth watched it all unfold from their quiet war room. The walls were lined with screen surveillance from across. The stars, rebellions, riots, collapsing governments. A young officer turned to the Earth Chancellor. "Should we call Ash back?" The Chancellor shook her head. "No, he's not ours." To command anymore? Deep space. A Coalition elite squad tracked a signal to a derelict station. Their mission: kill Ash. What they found instead is a message carved into the wall with laser precision. "I'm not hiding, waiting. You should worry when I stop waiting." ... The squad didn't return finally, after months of silence. Earth spoke, not with a war fleet, not with a death weapon, just with a signal broadcast. On every known frequency, it was a human voice, calm, direct, no emotion. "This is Earth. We do not seek conquest. But if you come for us, if you harm our people, If you exploit the weak X, pick no mercy. We sent one. We can send more. Remember that. Galaxy trembled. The message didn't end with a threat. It ended with a promise, and that was worse. Because now every planet, every leader, every power that had once laughed at humans understood something too late. They hadn't just mocked Earth's weakness, they had woken its strength. Ash stood once again on the command deck of the Vindicator. He looked out at the stars, quiet, watching them blink. Behind him, data streamed. Signals, reports, maps, all showing the same thing, change. No one called Earth weak anymore, not out loud, not even in secret.